Hey, welcome back. So today we are going to get our game area all set up. That means we're going to adjust the nav mesh area so that the enemy can move in a greater area. We're also going to set up our area that constrains our player into the play area so that if they move outside of it, they'll die. So we got a lot to do as far as kind of some cleanup stuff to make it so that the game starts to come together. And then in the next video, we'll get to doing the actual spawning of our enemy so that they're not just in the scene when we start. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at some of this stuff. But first, let me give myself a little plug here. If you haven't seen these videos or you want to get caught up to what we're working on or take a look at some of my stuff working in other areas with Unreal Engine or with Maya, please take a look at my YouTube channel, Paul Fritz Animation, and subscribe. All right, so let's go ahead, enough with that, and get started. So right now we have, oh, there we go. Right now we have our game area set up, kind of in a constrained area. So if I kind of bounce out of here, you see this box right in this area right here. If I hit P on my keyboard, you can see that this is kind of the tiny area for our play area, but it was just sort of to start to get things set up. So let's go ahead and get that fixed. And the way we're going to do that is over here with the nav mesh bounds volume. And originally, we kind of just played around with the scale up here. So let's go ahead and put these back to where they're supposed to be. One tab and one. And I think that's one as well. All right, so go ahead and just hit the reframe button. There we go. So now it's just this tiny little area. Nothing will happen if we try to move in it. The reason why we're doing that is because this is actually a brush, and if you had adjusted in the scale like I did, it works, but it's really more designed to kind of play around with it down here. We can kind of hover over it and we can adjust the individual sections there. Probably just a small nuance. Probably not, doesn't really matter that much. I don't really know, but again, let's just go ahead and I'm going to zoom out a little way so I can see a lot larger area of my map. I'm going to start to adjust the X and Y, and then we'll come back with the Z in a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of start to do this like that. And I don't need to have it too far that way, but let's see here. Yeah, we do want it. All right. Go ahead and just throw it back in here. Make this bigger. Pull it in so it's a little bit on the outer edge there. And now I'm going to go ahead and make it wider, and that would be my y-axis. It's kind of hard to see where it's gone. You see I'm really way out there. Probably don't need to be that far out. To pull that back in a little bit. It doesn't need to cover the entire map, but just a large enough area for you to kind of plan on where you want your enemy characters to kind of start coming into your game. And I can adjust a little bit further that way. But let's go ahead and adjust the Z right now so that we start to raise things up a little bit. I'm going to pull the Z up some. Let's see here. Okay, and you can see right now the way I moved it, it's really pulled it off of there, but we're just going to make these bigger. Don't want to spend a lot of time focusing on this because what I really want to do is I want to get into getting things moving here. All right, so got a basic start there. I'll pull it over a little bit this way. Some more on my y-axis. All right. And since the game's mostly going to take place down on lower levels anyway, it's probably okay. I'm going to go ahead and just raise that up a little bit. So we have some more. So we have some more options to work with. But when I pull up too much, I'm pulling it off the ground down there. So let's make this a little bit bigger. Okay. You can see that I have quite a few areas here of the terrain that are not navigable. And we'll talk about that here in a second and how we're going to fix things like that. So our character is going to be able to run up and down these areas here. But our spider will not. They'll have to go around it. Now a spider is far more mobile and able to run up steeper surfaces than a human character would, you would expect. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our project settings, and the way to get there is from here, File, Project Settings, and then that'll open up this tab. And we want to go down to the one that says Navigation Mesh right here. And I'm going to just grab this off here so you can kind of see what happens when we do that. And with the nav mesh selected, I'm going to scroll down to the one that has to do with Agent Max Slope. And I'm going to make this 90 degrees. It's actually going to default back down to 89, I think. And when I do that, you see that it increases a significant amount of navigable area here for our spider. This also makes it so that your character runs a little bit more smoothly up and down steep slopes, because before they would automatically just start to jump if it was over 45-degree angle. And that's not really, in my opinion, realistic. There's some things why you would want to do that in a game, but you really just kind of got to play around with some of these different settings and see what works for you. And the other ones you can play around with is the Agent Max Step Height. Right now it's set to 35 units, and then the max slope here, and then cell height. You can also play around with cell height, which changes the way that this nav mesh is calculated. I'm just going to leave it alone right now. I'm going to go ahead and park this back up here just in case I need to come back and play with it a little bit more. The other thing I want to see is, since I have this house and we have these kind of sharp angles here going up the stairwell, this is something that is going to cause an issue if you have stairs. You may need to go in and modify your model a little bit. You may also want to adjust that step height. That is something that you can do. You can do it individually on the character. You can also do it here as well. And let's see here, that was this one. So if I went to like 45, you can see that now I have a clear path that is now navigation ready for my enemy as well as my character. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and save this. Save my map. Now the next thing we want to get started on is actually setting up our kind of our game volume area. And we want to be able to lock our character in so that they have a large enough play area, but if they go too far, they're going to end up losing points, losing health, and potentially dying. And the reason why we're doing that is on this map, now if you built a map that has basically walls and all that that keeps your character confined into that area, this probably isn't something that you really need to worry about. But if you take a look at my map, because it's based off of a height map, I could go around and do all that work, confine them in, build the mountains up, and that is certainly something, a method that you can do. But because we're not going to use this entire map as a play area anyway, because we're trying to keep it intense and kind of in a confined area so that it has all these waves and starts to get overwhelming, what we're going to do instead is going to put in a volume. So I'm going to hit P on my keyboard, get rid of all that so I can kind of see what I'm working with. Right now, what we're going to do is going to create back in our content browser. So let's go to our content under our blueprints. So content browser, your blueprints. We're going to create another folder in here, and we're going to right click. We're going to create new folder. We're going to call this folder trigger. And oops, apparently I have caps lock on. And I can't type to save my life today. Okay, so there we go. Trigger or triggers. probably would have been a better name. We'll call it triggers, because right now we only going to put one in here. But if you have, if we're going to end up setting up other triggers, like things that happen when you when you step into a trigger, or something event happens. And that's kind of what triggers are. Is your character walks into something, it's invisible, but that causes an event to happen. And in this case, what it's going to be is this trigger, they're actually inside of it, and if they leave it, it's going to cause them to have loss of health to the point where they're going to die. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to, in here, right click, and we're going to create a blueprint class. And this is just going to be a regular actor. And we're going to name this BP game. Actually, we'll call this player area. Okay, I guess we could have called it playground if we wanted to. But anyway, so we're going to call this player area. Now we're going to double click on it, open it up. And let's see here, we're going to go to our event graph. We're not really going to mess around with the viewports. And we have event begin play, we have event actor begin overlap, and we're not going to end up using the event begin play for this. We can delete that. We can delete the event tick. You can leave them if you want. It doesn't really matter. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to end up using this one to begin with. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to pull off from here. And we want to cast this to our player, because this is going to end up, we're going to pull our character out, so we need to cast it. So mine is cast to BP, and mine is Lieutenant Bilica. Okay, not the class, the Bilica. Okay, don't want to get the one that says class at the end. And the other actor, plug that into object. Okay. Now, what we want to do is let's see here. Okay. The other thing we need to do is we're going to need to cast this, or not cast it, we're going to need to set our mission area. But that's actually back for our character, and we haven't set that up yet. So let's go ahead and we're just going to save what we have. Well, actually, we don't need to save it right now. What we want to do is I'm going to pull this over here, pop that back up there so I can see my other tab. I need to go back into my blueprints, find my pawn for my player. Okay. And what I need to do is over here, I need to create a variable. And this variable needs to be outside gameplay area. So we're going to call this outside gameplay area. It's kind of long name, but I want this variable to be very clear on to what this is doing for us. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and compile this and save it. I'm going to jump back to my player area, my play area, and what I want to do is pull out from here, and we want set outside. You may not be able to need it. Outside, there we go. Don't know how to type, that's my problem. So once we set this, okay, I'm going to go ahead and go into that. And we're going to leave this empty in here, because this is when the character begins to play, they're actually inside the play area. So right now they're inside. So we're not going to check that mark in there. And we're going to have to create a function in here, but we'll come back to that actually we're going to go ahead and do that now, because we're going to finish this up and we're going to need to have that function first. So that function is going to be right in here. We're going to hit plus function, and the name of this function is going to be kill player. Very macabre, but it's very clear as to what we're doing. All right. So now with that selected, what we're going to do is pretty simple. Right click into this empty area and type in apply damage. We want the apply damage right here. The very top one, just apply damage. And the damage actor, I'm going to pull out from here and we're going to say get player character. Get player character. I'm going to connect this up. And the base damage is going to be 100. Okay. And that's going to get that started. We're going to compile it and save that. And now we're going to go ahead and with that done, we're going to jump back into the event graph. And right here at the end of set, we're going to not pull that function out, but we want to be able to refer to that function. So we're going to right click and type in clear timer by function name. Okay. We connect this up, and that function name is the one we just created, which is, oops, sorry, right down here. Right in here. We need to type in exactly the way we named our function, so kill player. Okay. And that will complete that. So we're going to copy that. We're going to highlight all that, marquee, select it. We're going to hit C to create a comment. And this is going to be player enters play area. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get another event overlap, but this actually is event actor end overlap instead of begin. So event actor, and here it is right here, event actor end overlap. All right. And then again, we can just go ahead and we can highlight these two right here. And we're going to go ahead and come down here and just go Control W. We're just going to copy and paste those down here. We're going to connect these two up here. And right here where it says set, make sure you put a check mark inside there, because once the actor leaves this area, they are now outside of the play area. And now what we want to do is we want to set timer by a function name. So we're going to right click right here and we're going to call this set timer by function name. Okay. Connect this here. And again, that function name is going to be kill player, typed in exactly the way we created it on our function. And we need to set a time in here. Now we could just put a number in here, but we're just going to go ahead instead and we're going to make a variable, okay? Because we're going to need this variable for other things. So this is going to be called seconds before player death, or we could call it time before player death. Why don't we call it time before player death? Now it's that way it gives you some time. You can decide how much time you want them to have in the outside area, trying to run for escape or whatever. And this is going to be a float. So we want to change this to a float. And we're going to pull this out of here. We're going to type in get, plug that in there. We're going to compile everything. And then once we compile it, now we can, with the time before player death selected, we can decide how much time we want to give them. I'm going to give them 5 seconds in my game. And I'm going to go ahead and compile this and save it. Oh, one other thing we want to do, let's go ahead and clean up our do a little homework here, hit our comments, and this is going to be player leaves play area. Okay. And of course you can always change the color on these if you want, but I think we get the point here. All right, so that is it for creating our volume. Let's go ahead and compile and save it. Now what we want to do is go back to our level, go back to our blueprints, back into triggers, and what we want to do is we want to pull this out into the area and pull it up a little bit so we can see it. And this one we are actually going to use our scale tool up here, so we can just hit R on our keyboard if we wanted to and pull from these. Alrighty then. Okay, not sure why we're having trouble seeing it. Oh, I think I know why. Let's see here. So let's go ahead and back here. So here's our event graph. Here's where we did our function. Right here in the viewport, I said we weren't going to do anything with the viewport. Forgot to think about that. Wish I could take that back now. So let's go ahead and right here on the default scene root, let's select that, hit the down arrow, and we're going to select a box. Okay. And this is going to be a box collision. Okay. We aren't actually going to collide with anything if we don't put this in there. So we need a collider box to be able to make it so that we can actually run into something. And that is what we're missing in this. So let's go ahead and now go back into our scene. Let's compile it and save it first. And now you can see that I've already started kind of making it bigger while I was pulling on it before, trying to figure out why it wasn't working. So let's go ahead and jump up a little bit and try to decide how big of a play area we want to have for our character. And that's really going to be up to you as you design your level. I'm going to kind of make mine big enough to run around in, kind of get up to these areas here, but not close enough to be able to kind of run over the edge there. So I'm going to make it a little bit wider this direction so I have room to go that way, and then adjust. You may have to kind of play around with it to see how far your player can get, how far you want them to get. And again, you can also adjust the timer, how long they have before they die. And then we also need to set a height. So you need to decide how high up, if you have mountains and things like that, you want them to be able to go to. Because again, we're trying to create an illusion that they're on this world, so we don't want them to be able to see off into the nothingness. Okay, where'd you go? EP player area. Okay, so it should be large enough area for it to actually keep our player in. Let's go ahead and save it. Go ahead and hit play. Try to run away from the spider because the spider's going to kill me. Probably should have taken it out of the scene. Okay, so I know that it's shorter over here, so I'm going to run over here. And we're not going to get any indication right now because we still have to create that. Okay, and there it worked. My player gets towards the edge. It looks like it's a hill going downward. As we know, it's actually the world falling off there. But so that has got our initial pieces of our nav mesh area larger for our spider to be able to move around in. We've also made a gameplay area to keep our player confined into our player area. So that's going to be it for this video. Just want to double check my notes to make sure I didn't forget something. All right, did not. So I think we're good. And again, if you have any questions, please make a comment. Leave me a comment. Let me know. If you would like to catch up on where we are, please go ahead and subscribe to my channel, Paul Fritz Animation, and you can also check out some of the other projects and things I have in there as well. So thank you again for watching. Like this video if you liked it, and I'll see you next time.